7 regional meetings last year, which is huge for us, 11-member staff, and trying to get out to all the localities. We did not make it to Region 8 last year. So we made a point to try to get to Region 8 this year, and thank you for hosting Loudoun County. We really appreciate it. So this is our 3rd one that we've had this year. The purpose of these regional meetings is to let you hear a little bit from the legislators that represent this area, but it's also for us to gather feedback so that we can go back to our steering committees and put in data, put in information that we gain from talking to you all about your local issues into our steering committee process. What we like to do is have each locality tell what their top issues are, their highlight issues are, or their struggles, what you're dealing with locally, so that we can take those ideas back to our steering committee, let them vet them, let them do some due diligence, and then determine whether we want to raise it as a legislative platform issue for VACO for all the counties this year. We were really going to enjoy hearing what legislators have to say tonight when they are here. I don't think any of them, oh, Jennifer, I'm sorry, is here, the only one so far. We've got, had confirmed about 6 more coming, so they may be coming in slowly, coming in late, but thank you for being here with us this evening. Chair, thank Phyllis Randall. Phyllis is VACO board. She's on our VACO board and Region 1 to Region 8 representatives on that board, and also chair of the Loudoun County Board here also. Thank you for hosting us here. But before I introduce her and let her have a piece on the program, we want to thank one of our sponsors who are here. VACORP. VACORP Insurance is here, and they have been with us, holding hands with us at all these regional meetings we've had. And at every regional meeting, we've given them a chance to just say a few words, a little bit about VACORP, what VACORP is, and how VACORP can help Virginia's counties. So Kathleen, thank you for being here. Kathleen Guzzi with VACORP. Give you a few minutes to just tell us a little bit about VACORP.
Thank you, I appreciate that, Dean, and I will be brief because I know I'm not the main attraction here. But before I started with VACORP, now I'm a member of, or a team member of the Member Services Group, I was in your shoes. I was in local government for 30 years. And most recently, in the last 11, I was a county administrator both in Bedford and Botetourt. So people ask, why VACORP? Why did you come to VACORP? And it's really very simple. The 3 main premises I utilize as county administrator are 3 very main premises of VACORP. One is customer service. That's what you guys do every single day. You're your citizens, you want to be customer service friendly. That I'm sure it's the main priority for everybody. Second, financial stability, financial accountability, being able to afford quality services at an affordable rate. I started in local government as a budget analyst, and I think once a budget analyst, always a budget analyst. I was always looking for in my localities, how can you provide that better service, improve the service, or maintain that quality of service at a reasonable rate. And that's what VACORP is all about. We were started by localities who came to us and said, hey, insurance is going sky high, we don't have alternatives, we need alternatives. So VACORP came in, and that's what we can do. We provide a quality service, it is a reasonable rate, and more importantly, we have stability in our rates. You're not going to see them fluctuate up and down because we know that's the last thing you all need in your budgets. And thirdly, and actually probably most importantly, is safety. One of the things I used to tell my folks, mainly my fire and EMS folks, but also public works and utilities, your main job at the end of the day is to come back safe and sound and take care of yourself. Because frankly, I need you tomorrow to provide that same service. So no heroics out there, etc. So that's what VACORP really strives to do. We have a whole separate risk control area, and we provide that training that's needed by local governments. We have a specialized public safety unit, because let's face it, that's where a lot of, especially your workers' comp claims are going to be, that's where your most exposure is going to be. So those premises that I use as county administrator are VACORP's. It was a natural fit. And then also, as I served on the board of directors for VACORP for 8 years, I learned truly how responsive they were to members, but also how they came up with programs to help address what local government's current needs are. They didn't just rest on providing the basics, the workers' comp, property and casualty. They really looked at what's new and different. For instance, we have a volunteer accident and sickness policy. It was created for our volunteer fire and EMS guys, but any volunteer that you utilize in the county, if you want to provide them accident and sickness, they get hurt while they're volunteering for you, and big events, or your library, or Parks and Rec, or community services, we can provide that policy for you. Also, two other relatively new programs that they came to us when I was on the board as a direct result of state action. Hybrid disability and LODA, Line of Duty Death Act. Both of those, basically, the state said, localities are going to now have this. Oh, well, we have a program that we have control over, but you guys are going to pay for it. And we said, no, wait a minute. We need a little bit of local control, as much as the legislation will give us. Plus, more importantly, VACORP can do it, and they've proven that they can do it cheaper, and we truly believe it is a better program. Also, we've definitely been involved in the legislative end, specifically with LODA. As many of you may be aware, or if not, you're going to become aware, there were some significant changes in the legislation this past year. They don't go into effect until July of 17, so VACORP will be having some regional meetings this fall to educate folks on those. But it was really, we were invited to be on the team to look at it, specifically House Appropriations, and I believe as a result of our input as well as the public safety, various public safety organizations throughout the Commonwealth, that it's better legislation. It gives a little bit of local control, but more importantly, they made significant changes that are going to assure the financial stability of that program for years down the road. So again, we're very proud of that. We like working with VACO and the legislature when there are items that directly impact the area of risk management, so that in the end result we can save you more money. I know we're working on one this year, has to do with public officials' liability insurance for constitutional officers. As you will know, VA Risk, state agency, they basically send us a bill every year. I think we used to get it on about June 1st, and said, here, this is what you owe. And oh, don't worry about paying it because we're just going to deduct it from the comp board reimbursement. So again, we had no say-so over it. So we're working with Dean and his crew to hopefully have that as a coverage that VACORP can provide, because again, what does it give us? It gives us local control, because local governments are the board of directors, and we have a proven track record of providing quality service at an affordable rate. We do the service for the smallest county in the Commonwealth, as well as the largest county in the Commonwealth, Fairfax County. Granted, they're self-insured, but we work with them on reinsurance issues. We also work with localities that are large and are self-insured with their TPA, third-party administrators. So whether you need full-blown insurance coverage or some other area where we can help you, we also provide that service for many cities and towns. So if you have any kind of insurance needs, please don't hesitate to give us a holler, and we appreciate being part of this. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Kathleen. One thing that I want to piggyback on what Kathleen said, 38% increase in your liability insurance for your constitutional officers this year. You're going to see that 38% increase. That's going to be mandatory because it's VA risk. You don't have a choice but paying it. And while we're looking at legislation going forward this year is the ability to shop those rates, we know that you can get better rates anywhere else in the market. So we're looking at that as one of our top legislative issues this year. Thank you for being here, Kathleen. Let me introduce you to the VACO team we have here. We are VACO strong here tonight. We've got several. Larry Land. Larry, if you'll stand up. Larry does transportation and environmental issues for VACO. Bo Blevins. Bo does tax and finance issues and also kind of leads our education program. Gage Harder. Gage is in the back. Gage is our communications director. You see all the publications. Hopefully you're reading all the publications and all the text alerts that we send out. Gage is in charge of all that, does a fine job. Amy Veely, or Amy Sales, I'm sorry, recently married. Amy is our meeting planner and coordinates all of our meetings for us. Joe Lurch. Joe Lurch is one of our new members of staff, and he does wear the VACO hat. Some of you may remember him from VML, but we're glad to have Joe with us. He does general government and land use issues, planning issues. Katie Boyle. Katie, welcome. Katie's not actually on board yet. It begins July 1. Formerly with Fairfax County. I know Claudia's giving me the stare here. And we're glad to have Katie on board. Katie's going to be doing health and human resources and education programs. So, and I'm Dean Lynch, Deputy Executive Director with VACO. So glad to have you all here, and I'm going to turn it over to Phyllis Randall.
Thank you. Well, first, thank you for coming to Loudoun and welcome to Loudoun County. When I saw the email that said they needed a place to have the Region 8 meeting. I screamed down the hall, literally, to my chief of staff, Janine, wave your hand, and I said, Janine, that's us. And I did that because I would like to see Loudoun more involved both in VACO and NACO. I think that these regional bodies and these statewide bodies are so important. To show you how important this is, today I not only ordered good weather, I actually ordered good traffic. And so, you guys got both of those things. So thank you for coming. Of course, in Loudoun County, we have the Metro coming to Loudoun County, which will arrive in 2019, which will open Loudoun up to the region in a very good way. And when I attended my first VACO Board of Directors, I was really pleased to find out that so many people in other parts of Virginia were asking us about what was happening in Northern Virginia, and I also was able to ask them. And one thing that was really interesting is they were saying to me, "What's the biggest issue up in your county?" And I said, "Well, probably traffic. That's the biggest issue up in Northern Virginia." And I said to the people who are in Matthews County, which must be by population the smallest county in Virginia, it's 8,500 people in Matthews County. Which one is the smallest? Highland. How many people are there?
I'm not sure.
Less than 3,000? Wow. So I asked Matthews and a lot of the smaller counties, I said, what's your biggest issue? And to a county, they all looked at me, all the smaller counties all looked and said, firefighters. Firefighters are our biggest issue. And I thought, really? And they said, yeah. And then one lady said to me, well, you wouldn't understand that because all of your firefighters are career firefighters. And I was like, no, half of our firefighters are more volunteer. And then she said, well, you wouldn't understand that because Loudoun doesn't have one piece of land that's not built on. I was like, no. Western County is rural Loudoun County. And so we have this really interesting back and forth. And what I've learned is that Northern Virginia has to introduce ourselves to other parts of Virginia. And that's what I hope that we can be able to do on VACO. I want to go around and have everybody quickly introduce themselves. The legislators in the room right now, Dave and Jennifer will speak a little more later, but I at least want everyone to know who's in the room. So you've already introduced yourself, so Mr. LaRock, if you would quickly, and then you have more time to speak later.
Sure. Dave LaRock, representing the 33rd House District of Western Loudoun, parts of Frederick County as well.
Claudia Arco, Fairfax County Legislative Director.
I'm Dan Stoiker, I represent the Mount Vernon District in Fairfax County.
Janine Arnett, and I'm with Phillips Township.
Gwen Kennedy from the Loudoun County Administrator's Office. Nicole Beaches, legislative liaison for Fairfax County Transportation.
Jennifer Boysko, I represent the 86th District, which is primarily the Herndon, Oak Hill, Chantilly area, but 2 precincts in that as well.
And we never let her forget it. 2 precincts in Loudoun. Thank you.
I'm Carl Aker, I work for the Department of Management Budget for the Loudoun County.
Hi, I'm Joe Provis. I'm the Director of Transportation and Capital Infrastructure for Loudoun County.
I'm Charles Shedd from Loudoun County Administration.
Tim Hampshire, Oakland County Administration, Nick Donahue, Deputy Secretary of Transportation.
Okay, I think we got everybody else. So first of all, again,
I'm Roger Wiley, my law firm, Matthew Wiley & Gore, lobbies for Loudoun County.
and Roger told me that the traffic coming up from Richmond was fantastic, so
I
you're
can
welcome.
attest to that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
The easier trips on that.
All right, so now I'm going to introduce Nick Donahue. Nick Donahue is the Deputy Secretary of Transportation for the Commonwealth of Virginia. He previously served as Policy and Legislative Director for Transportation for America. He was also an Assistant Secretary of Transportation and Special Assistant to the Secretary of Transportation in the administration for Tim Kaine. Before I go further, I want to say how I recognize Nick whenever I see him now. One of my degrees, I have a degree in biology. And in biology, one of my most, I thought, interesting classes was genetics. And in genetics, we learned how incredibly unusual it is for someone to have a beard of one color and hair of another color. So now when I see Nick, I always go, that's Nick Donahue. He's the one with the genetic abnormality. And his hair is another color.
He's special.
He's special for that very reason. So ladies and gentlemen, the Deputy Secretary, Nick Donahue.
Now that we establish I'm weird. Everybody wants to hear
opportunity to be with you here tonight. Bo asked me to come up here and really just talk about some of the initiatives the Commonwealth currently has underway in transportation. So I really want to talk a little bit about the House Bill 2 process, which because of our friends in North Carolina, we're trying to rebrand. You used Google House Bill 2 up until 4 months ago. You learned all about transportation in Virginia. Now you learn about a bunch of things involving bathrooms in North Carolina. And so we rebranded it. We're calling it Smart Scale. We have a nice little logo and all these other things. And so you're going to hear me say that a few times tonight, and I can remember to do it. And what I really mean is House Bill 2. But it's now Smart Scale. We don't have House Bill 2, that's North Carolina. And then I also want to talk about some projects that are underway in Northern Virginia. But as we do this, I mean, we're a pretty small group here tonight, so let's be informal. Let's back and forth. I'm happy to answer any questions along the way, or if I say something you want to talk about more, just stop me. I'm happy to go through that and just talk in more detail. So I think really last week was the culmination of about 24 months of hard work for the staff at VDOT, DRPT, and the Secretary's office. And on Tuesday, the reason I say that is the Commonwealth Transportation Board adopted the first 6-year program that was developed using the Smart Scale evaluation process. And again, that was the result of legislation that was championed by Speaker Howe, sponsored by Delegate Chris Daly from Virginia Beach, and that Governor McCullough's really first directive to Secretary Lane and myself was go work with them on this. He said he campaigned on picking the right projects, let's take the politics out of transportation, I believe in governance, and so we really worked hand in hand in a bipartisan manner to implement this. And so I just want to really say, we've appreciated all the help we've gotten from the legislature and others as we worked on this process. I think what was pretty remarkable about what happened last Tuesday is we allocated $1.7 billion to projects all across the Commonwealth to expand capacity, improve safety, reduce congestion, promote economic development. And in the past, when we funded projects in transportation, we would, you have right-of-way, you have PE, you have construction, and a lot of projects in this area are tens of millions of dollars. But PE is like $3 or $4 million. So when folks would show up in 6-year programs and they'd sit there and get started talking to the secretary, and he'd be like, gosh, a lot of folks really came today and talked about that project. Let's make sure they know what we're thinking about. And so we put $4 million in year 5 of the 6-year program for this $50 million project. And then if you were in local government, you go, I'm in the 6-year program. They've heard me. They know I'm important. They put me in there. Things are going to be great. And then you show up the next year and you flip to year 4 to see, like, okay, there's my, my $4 million still there. I wonder how much they gave me in years 5 and 6, because they definitely understood how important our project was. And you flip to year 4 and you weren't there. You're like, oh man, maybe there were budget cuts this year. So you go to year 5, and you weren't in year 5, and at that point you're like, oh, I know what happened. We made such a persuasive case. They actually moved us up to years 2 and 3. And you flip through there, and you weren't in there. And really what used to happen with the way we program funds is because we were partially funding projects, there was no accountability, there was no certainty, and there was no paid process, where basically, unless you had money in years 1 or 2 in the 6-year program, you didn't have anything. What you had was a notification that somebody somewhere in Richmond was thinking about it. But they weren't giving you cash, they were thinking about it. And because, 6-year program is 6 years, governors have 4-year terms, and the CTV used to be fully appointed, you could be removed for any reason by the governor. If you were in year 5 of the 6-year program, you might have been an entirely different governor by the time you're supposed to be in year 1, which means you probably weren't going to be in year 1. And so what's really remarkable about this $1.7 billion is every single project that's in there is fully funded through all phases. And so if you're in the program, this isn't I'm thinking about you. This is a commitment from the Commonwealth that we are going to deliver these projects. We funded design, we funded right-of-way, we funded construction, and we are going to make sure all of that money stays in the program and is used to bring that project to fruition. What that also really does, and I think you'll start to see a change in the Department of Transportation, is in the past, they were kind of like a yo-yo. So one governor would come in year 1 and say, here's my governor's list. Go forth and conquer. And so they go out, they're good at what they do. They can design and build just about anything. But if you get halfway through designing something, and then the next governor comes in and you're at the bottom of the injury, he just yanks you up, and he says, no, those are the wrong projects. Here's my list. That guy's not governor anymore. That's just a list some guy gave me. Go focus on these projects. And so it made VDOT really inefficient because their priorities change completely every 4 years. And I know some of you have experienced that here at the local level with some of the projects, and some projects are still trying to get done, where you've been in the 6-year program, you've been yanked out, governors have changed, the projects went away. That's not going to happen anymore. This $1.7 billion is fully funded, all 163 projects, all the way to completion. One of the other things that I think is really important about this process is for the first time ever, we actually know what we think the project's going to do on a host of metrics. You know, in the past, people would show up and say, this project's so great for congestion. It also does everything for safety you could ever imagine. And by the way, it's just economic development. Boom, it's going to happen. This is going to be great. And when you're sitting at that table, remember the CTV, you know, we're there listening to those rules about public engagement of the 6-year hearing programs, but all you hear is everyone say their project is the best at congestion, the best at safety, the best at economic development. The first year we were in office, I went to 9 different public hearings, and I found the 20 best congestion reducing projects in the entire Commonwealth. Every single project someone came with was the best congestion project, the best safety project, and the best economic development project. That's no longer the case. We now know all projects are not created equally, and that's fine. You know, all projects cost differently, they're in different parts of the states, we have different needs. But now, for all the 287 projects that local government submitted to us in the fall of 2015, for every single one of those, you can go online, we've published the scorecard, as well as the application for each of these projects, and you can see what it will do for congestion, what it will do for safety, economic development, accessibility, land use, and whether or not it impacts on the environment. And then what's really important is you can see how it compares to its peers. One, how it compares to its peers in the district, you know, Northern Virginia, Culpeper, etc. And then 2, how it compares to its peers statewide. And when you see that, what you realize is, again, there are some people who they thought they had the best project in the state, and then they were 6th last. And they realized, okay, maybe this isn't the best project. Maybe we need to think about how to do this differently. And again, that's not to say that project doesn't have merit. It's just saying today, it's not the most pressing need. At some point, that's going to be the most pressing need. But with the other things that we have in the Commonwealth, it wasn't the best use of money today. And that's really what the smart scale process is about. It doesn't matter who the governor is, it doesn't matter, you know, who the chair of Senate Finance is, and it doesn't matter who has the best lobbyists. What matters is what are the best projects that are available today that we can build with the amount of money that we have. Now, in Northern Virginia, you know, when we first started this process, when I came up here and met with staff to talk about it, everyone said, this is a scheme, Nick. So what do you mean you developed it? How can it be a scheme yet? They said, this is a scheme, it passed, you know, unanimously down in Richmond. That means this must be a scheme to send the money everywhere outside of Northern Virginia. Now, of course, what you didn't know is when I went to Lynchburg and Bristol, they said it was a scheme to send every dollar to Northern Virginia, so you both didn't trust each other, but I suspect you already knew that. But in this first round, you did pretty darn good. This region got about $530 million out of the $1.7 billion that's granted. For anyone who's keeping track, that's a heck of a lot more than you got under the old formula program when we had primary, secondary, and urban formula. So 19 projects were funded in Northern Virginia. About 11 of those were really small projects. They were under about $10 million. 90% of that $530 million went to 8 projects. The biggest one being 66 outside the Beltway, which was the highest scoring project across the entire Commonwealth by a factor of 3. So that project scored a 60 overall in benefits before we even thought about cost. And the next highest scoring project was 25, which was a 22-mile widening I-64 on the Peninsula and Hampton Roads. So you guys really upset a lot of people across the Commonwealth with that project because you pushed down their scores. Because again, we're always looking at how does the project compare to the best possible project. And 66 was the best possible project on congestion. It was one of the best projects on safety. It was, I think, one of the best projects on accessibility. It was a top scoring project in so many categories that it really skewed some of the results that we've seen this year. The reason I kind of bring this up is, as I said, everything is relative in the scoring process. So a lot of projects, I think, in Northern Virginia, people thought might have scored higher this first go-round. You're going to see them score higher next time. Because 45% of the scores in Northern Virginia, as mandated by law, go to congestion mitigation. And 66 is such a rock star at eliminating congestion that every other project is so far behind. So it got 100 if you're looking at 0 to 100 score on congestion. And the next highest project was 24. And then there's a few 20s, and then everything else was in under 10. And it's because 66 does so much. So that means next year, if you look at your project and what it got in congestion, its score is going to go up probably by a factor of 4 by the virtue that we funded 66. And so I know I've talked to people about Route 7 and North Star Boulevard and other things. You're going to see those project scores really go up in this second round because 66 was the best project we probably built this year. But now we funded it, and it's going to be built. And that means other projects next year will do better under this process. The other thing I really want to kind of point out is we reformed the funding formulas back in the 2015 legislative session, and I think it's something that's very important for this region and is important for you all to really protect when we're down in Richmond. So right now there's 3 major programs, whereas in the past there were 3 core programs, but then VDOT had about 10 different ways they could take money off the top before you ever got to a funding formula. Today though we just have 3. You have the State Good Repair Program, which is based purely on the condition of roads and bridges in this region. You already get about $100 million in the next 6-year program, and that program really ramps up over time. Then there's the district grant program, and that's money that's guaranteed to every single district, and it's 27.5% of the overall formula. And really what you do there is you get your share of the old primary, secondary, and urban formula. So you get the highest amount, surprise, surprise, of any district in the state. You get 20.7% of that program. And then the final program, and I think this is one that's really important for big regions like Northern Virginia, is the High Priority Projects Program. This was a program that we intentionally created to address high-cost, high-benefit projects across the state that are really hard to fund when you're funding everything through a formula. Of the $530 million, you got more than 300 through this program. So this program was a big benefit to the Northern Virginia region. And I think it's a really important program for the Commonwealth because without a program like this, I don't know how we fund an Interstate 66 fix, which we desperately need. I don't know how we widen I-64 in the peninsula, which we desperately need. I don't know how we build a new bridge over the Rappahannock River and I-95, which we desperately need. So it's going to be really important in the coming years that we make sure that program sticks around, particularly for reasons like this one, because it's what's going to help you address those high-cost projects that otherwise, in the past, really weren't fundable, kind of moving forward. So I talked about this year's kind of SMART scale, and I think we had a lot of consensus generally about how that worked out. CTV put out the scores in January. The secretary actually, on the first day of the General Assembly session, said, I want you to deliver a binder to every single member of the General Assembly with all 287 scores. We said we didn't think that was a great idea. He said, well, I'm the boss, so we did it. And it worked out. And so we put the scores out in January, and we plan to make sure that happens every year moving forward, because we have nothing to hide. And no secretary after us should have anything to hide. This is a process. We have established rules, and we should be willing to show the public, elected officials, what we've done, the scores we've had, and how we're making the decisions that we've made. And so that's another thing that we've done this year that you're going to see us replicate here in the second round, but I also think it's important moving forward, because it's not fair for the state to ask local governments to trust us if we're not willing to tell you what we've done. And so we're going to make sure that we do that again the second time, and I think it's important that everyone keeps pressure on the state to keep doing that moving forward. We are going to be starting a second round of the SMART scale process this August. We'll be taking applications again from August 1 to the end of September, October 1, I think is the formal deadline there. If you want assistance from the Commonwealth, which I highly recommend you talk to us before you send in your projects, we're going to ask this year that you put in a kind of a notice of intent and kind of tell us just the project titles that you're planning to put in so that the state can start to compile the information it needs to be able to evaluate those projects and also provide you with the information that might help you put in a better application with regard to scoring. It's not meant to be a big burdensome thing. It's literally, I want to put in, I-66 outside of Beltway widening. That's all we really need. But we're really asking folks to kind of do that so that we can start our due diligence moving forward. Again, we're going to score those projects over the fall, and unfortunately for some of the staff, Christmas break. And then when Delegate Rock and the other boys come back to Richmond, we're going to put big fat binders on their desk saying, here are all the scores and the recommended projects for funding. Now the bad news this year is we don't have the same amount of money. I guess really the bad news is we're never going to have $1.7 billion again for a round of the smart scale process. The governor didn't program any new capacity expanding projects for his first 2 years in office. And so we had 4 years of money built up that we programmed in this first round. Moving forward is going to be about 2 years worth of money every time that we do it, and that means the amount is going to be closer to about $850 million that will be available for projects. And again, half of that is going to be statewide, high priority projects money, and the other half is going to be divided through the districts using that formula. Northern Virginia will get about $81, $82 million out of that. The other thing that we're hearing is there's going to be more projects this year. It's kind of hard for us to believe as staff. We had no clue what to expect last year, and so we had 30 people sitting in a room with all the computers just waiting for the applications to come in, and we got about 327. Our preliminary estimates based on what we're hearing from the staff in the district is that we're expecting 400 this year. Remember, we funded 163 of those 280 or 300 some projects. So that means there's probably 160 that didn't get funded, and there's going to be 240 we haven't even seen before that are going to come in. So I expect this to be a very, very competitive process. So again, I would encourage you to coordinate with the district offices here to make sure that we're aware that we can try and help you. The other thing that we're doing, again, in this region, you all have much more sophisticated local governments. You all have tons of transportation staff, so you may not need some of the support, but we're also offering for projects that didn't get funded in this first round. If you'd like VDOT's assistance to go back in and spend consultant support to try and redesign that project, either lower its cost or increase its benefits, we're happy to do that.
Does that give you any plus up for your...
If the consultants are able to find a way to reduce its cost, then it will. Because really, again, in smart scale, it's the benefits and then divided by the cost. And so 50% of how your score turns out is how much do you cost. And a few examples of this is the I-64 widening in Richmond, east from 295 heading down the peninsula. That project cost $79 million and was submitted by the regional NPO. But we didn't have $79 million. We had 60. And so I called the Richmond District Administrator and said, how far can you go? It was a 5-mile widening, taking it from 4 to 6 lanes. Called me back 23 hours later, called me at 5 o'clock on a Monday, called me at 4 o'clock on a Tuesday. He goes, I can do the whole thing. So, Rob, project $79 million, I had 60. What the heck just happened here? He was like, that was a really awful design that someone had put in. And so what they had done is, whoever designed this said, we're going to widen the road on the outside of the VDOT's right-of-way, and we're going to buy about $14 million worth of right-of-way. We're going to knock down these houses and some businesses. We're going to add these 12-foot shoulders on both sides, even though it's in kind of urbanizing area. He goes, we had a 40-foot median. He was like, so I'm not buying any right-of-way. I'm just going to widen on the inside here, and we don't need another shoulder. We already have a shoulder. We don't need two. $19 million savings. And then that raised that project's score up to the point where it was funded. And we've seen this in other examples across the state. So again, I would really throw that out there that if you're interested in that type of support, the state is more than willing to offer to local governments, to MPOs, and to others to really look at their projects. I don't want to give you the impression that we're always going to be able to pull a rabbit out of a hat. We were lucky on that particular project, but I think there are more I-64s out there that we can try and improve the design on to really reduce the cost, still provide the bulk of the benefits, and hopefully get things funded. Because at the end of the day, it shouldn't be about the money that's coming to a given district. It should be about the outcomes that we're achieving. We're never going to have enough money to do everything perfectly, so our goal is to really do things as good as we can so we can do more good in more places, kind of moving forward. So please talk to us as you start to think about your projects. The staff should be helpful. If they're not calling, I will make sure you become helpful very quickly. Again, I don't think you're going to have that problem up here. You have really good staff on the smart scale team here. So that's really what we're doing there. And again, as we go through this, we're happy to answer any questions. But I also want to hit on some projects in this region. So I want to start with the one that this was 8 months ago I probably would try not to talk about. And that's I-66 inside development. So I'm just happy to say, and there's lots of folks in this room who have been engaged in this process, and there are lots of times where we had lots of conversations, some were great, some were different. But here we are, and I hope we're all in a place where we see real progress on that roadway. So for the first time ever in 30 years, there's agreement to actually improve I-66 inside the Beltway. We've actually just awarded a contract to help convert those HOV lanes to express lanes, so single drivers would now actually be able to use the road legally during rush hour, getting for a toll. And we are in the middle of completing the environmental process for the widening eastbound of I-66 from where the Dulles Toll Road merges in to Ballstead, which will really address the bulk of the kind of congestion that you see there, both in the AM and PM period. And then also at the July meeting, the Commonwealth Transportation Board is going to consider the first allocation of toll revenues to support increased transit and carpooling and other transportation demand management services in this region. And I know as that came out, a lot of folks were nervous that was there going to be geographic equity. We're all parts of the region that see benefit. And when I look at that list, I see projects all along the 66 corridor, and I think those are some of those really important for the CTV. So there's new buses in Loudon, there's new buses in Fairfax County, new buses in Falls Church, new buses in Arlington. And we're really hoping that we keep seeing geographic diversity in those projects year after year as those come to the Commonwealth Transportation Board for review and approval. This is, I think, one of the toughest projects, and so I know it was trying at times, but I'm happy to say that I think we're across the finish line there, and we think the widening will go out for procurement in early 2018. So we'll finish the environmental document and we'll start that procurement, and again, construction will start in 2018. It'll take about 2 seasons, so it's probably wrap up in late 2019, and again, it'll be open to traffic. We've been fighting about this road for so long. There was actually a lawsuit filed before it even was constructed. It stopped it twice. It's my hope that with this set of improvements, we can really see a benefit on I-66 and hopefully stop fighting about inside the Beltway. I just think it's been too much fighting. But I think we're there, and I think we have a real project that can make some benefits. Outside the Beltway on 66, we're in the middle of a public-private partnership procurement. I actually spent the last 2 days meeting with private sector concessionaires there. And again, that's a $2.1 billion project that's going to make it so that I-66 from the Beltway all the way out to just past Gainesville will have 3 general purpose lanes in each direction, no X-shoulder lane anymore. That's going to be a full-time general purpose lane. And then 2 express lanes in each direction. We're also going to be adding about 4,000 park and ride spots along this corridor. People have always said, well, why doesn't HOV work on 66? And there are a bunch of reasons, but one of the biggest is there's nowhere to park a car and get someone else for 95. They have parking ride lots that are 2,000 spaces big. That's bigger than all the parking ride lots in the entire 66 corridor. So we're adding 4,000 parking ride spots there. And as part of that, there will also be about 13 new bus routes that are established that are run from Prince William, Fairfax. Some of them will run up to 28 corridor to Tyson's. Others are going to run into Falls Church, Vienna, as well as DC and Pentagon. And so that's a really kind of great multimodal project that serves all types of users. Again, highest scoring product by factor 3 in the smart scale process of benefits. What we're really doing right now, though, is we're in the nitty-gritty with the concessionaires. And so we put out a term sheet in late 2015 saying what we would be willing to accept from them. And what we said is you have to build all those things I just talked about. You have to give us excess toll revenue. Depending on how you discount that using the private equity guys' terms, it's $350 million at a 6% rate. At a government cost of capital, it's $800 million. And so they're going to be paying that back to the Commonwealth over the term of the concession. And then we said you cannot ask for more than $600 million. And the reason we said you can't ask for more than $600 million is we looked at what it would cost the Commonwealth to finance it ourselves, and we can deliver the project, we can deliver the transit, we can provide that money back over time, and it would cost us $600 million. And so if they can do it for less than that, we then know that they can do everything we can do and can do it for less, because they'll be taking the toll revenue risk, they'll have to take the operations and construction risk, and so we'll be shifting all of that over to the private sector concessionaire. We think we'll know whether or not we have a deal in mid-September. That's when the bids are going to be due from them, and again, we have two teams competing, so this is going to be a competitive process all the way to the end. It's my hope that we find a deal with the private sector. If we don't, what we're going to be doing is going back to the money committees in November and essentially reporting that the private sector now cannot meet the deal terms they previously said they could, and that we're going to be asking the General Assembly to approve $1.7 billion in 9C debt, which is basically revenue bonds. They don't impact the debt capacity of the Commonwealth. That bill actually passed the Senate last year with a 2/3 majority that's required. And then the House, it was carried over and language was inserted in the budget saying, we want the Commonwealth to receive this procurement, but if the private sector doesn't meet these terms, we're going to come back next year and take this bill up so that this fund can move forward. And again, assuming we make a deal, construction's going to start in the spring of 2017, and we think it will take about 3 to 4 years. There will be some incentives in that contract for the private sector to move faster on that construction, but I think a lot of it, I think it's fair to say it'll probably be a 4-year process. It's a very constrained corridor there, and we have lots of requirements about maintenance of traffic. They can't shut down the road when they're building these things. And I'm sure once we start construction, we'll have to come back out here and talk to you in a lot more detail about how that's going to work. The last thing I really want to talk about tonight, and it's the thing that I think is going to end up taking most of our efforts over the next 2 to 3 years, that's Ramada. Ramada is just bluntly not a good place. In a good place. So we, I think, found out a lot of things that have been happening at Ramada after the fact that hadn't been caught by the previous leadership or board. Very candidly, that was there. And so the federal government has placed them on restricted drawdowns. And the federal government gives them several $100 million a year. And what that means is they have to go several weeks after they spend money before the federal government will pay them back. At VITA, we literally enter into a computer program and the Fed sends a check twice a day. And so we have almost no cash flow issues. That several-week delay has created huge cash flow issues for Ramada. They also have serious safety problems, as we're all seeing now. I mean, the simple fact that they didn't know why those cables were catching on fire is kind of terrifying. You had someone, unfortunately, die in the LaFont Plaza tunnel just south of the station because of a communication issue between the operations center and the operator of the train that blocked it in that tunnel. And so we're really happy that there's a new CEO of Ramada. We thought that year without a CEO only exacerbated what was already a bad situation. We've been very impressed with what Mr. Wheatfield has done there. He's made the tough choices. He's been the first GM who's come in and said, I can't do track work in 3 hours. So I'm not going to run a metro till 3 in the morning on the weekends. I can't even do some of this in 8 hours. So I'm going to close portions of the line for up to 42 days. It's going to be really painful up here while this happens, particularly in September, 42-day single track thing, between Boston and East Falls Church. That is going to be difficult, folks. But it's necessary to start to make headway on some of these key issues there. And the things they're really addressing now are clogged drains that's putting water near the third track and fixing some of these cables that they don't know why they're catching a fire there. But that's really just the beginning of this process. What we need to do is establish a Metro Safety Commission. And this is a commission that will be created by an interstate compact that will involve DC, Maryland, Virginia, and Congress. And this compact will really have the authority to hold Metro's feet to the fire on safety issues. So since 2005, we've had what's known as a Tri-State Oversight Commission, and this group was allowed to do audits and safety inspections of the WMATA rail system, and then they would issue findings. And they'd go down to WMATA's building on 5th Street, right outside of Gallery Place, and say, here are our findings. And WMATA would say, thank you very much. And they wouldn't do anything. And there was nothing this commission could do to force WMATA to act. The difference between that commission that we have today and the Metro Safety Commission is because we're going to be creating this Metro Safety Commission by Interstate Compact, it's going to have the authority to force WMATA's hand to take care of the safety issues that they identify. So we're not going to be, if there's a safety problem that costs $10 million, we're not spending $10 million on running a new bus line. That's not going to happen. We're not spending $10 million on something that's not safe related. That commission will be able to direct WMATA. These funds must be spent on this purpose. They'll be able to shut down the system if they find serious issues. This all sounds like really tough medicine, but we think it's a medicine that's necessary to really move WMATA into the right place in the future. Again, I think the GM we have now takes all of this very, very seriously. Several weeks ago, the governor actually issued an executive directive to the Department of Rail and Public Transportation, as well as the Secretary of Transportation, saying that in between now and when that commission becomes effective, and again, it's going to take General Assembly action in Virginia, Maryland, as well as the DC Council, that DRPT is directed to withhold funds from WMATA if they fail to comply with safety directives from the Federal Transit Administration or this Tri-State Oversight Committee that exists. Again, the GM is complying with all of these, but the governor thought it was really important that until that commission, the interstate compact is approved, there be a mechanism to ensure they don't stop doing that. Because this is too important to let things keep sliding.
So this will take an amendment to the WMATA compact?
It won't be an amendment to the WMATA compact, it will be an entirely separate compact. One of the requirements, this is required under federal law, and it's required that this be completely independent from WMATA, both financially, staffing, and legally, so that it can never be under undue influence, if you would, from the transit agency.
Assume I wanted to also revise the WMATA compact. Could we not cross-collateralize those two efforts?
You could. I think one of the things that need to be very important is we are working right now with staff in Maryland and DC on language for this interstate compact, and we hope to have that complete and final in September, so it can be available for 3 to 4 months of review by legislators, stakeholders, and others in advance of you all coming back in January. But if Virginia passes one that literally has an S where Maryland doesn't have an S, there's no interstate compact. So these things have to be completely identical when they pass. But another issue raises an issue that I think folks are talking about as we're working on this legislation and interstate compact there. I think one of the other things that's really important is we need to make sure WMATA is committed to reforming whatever happened in the past that allowed this to take place moving forward. You know, we're going to have this commission, that's a big step, but this commission is not going to be able to solve every single problem. Part of it's going to have to be internal to WMATA, and they're going to have to look at some of their practices. The GM recently released 20 managers. After he had a meeting with about 600 of them, I'm guessing those 20 said some things in that meeting that he said, you know what, you're not a part of WMATA. This isn't what we need here to succeed. So again, he's taking all the right actions today, and we're going to support him as long as he continues on this path moving forward. One of the other things, though, that if we see sufficient reform, and if we get this interstate compact moving forward, there's $300 million a year that goes to WMATA that's basically extra money, and half of that comes from the federal government, and then $50 million each comes from Virginia, Maryland, and DC. And that's on top of the federal formula funds. This is out of the general fund of the United States of America. They provide the DC metro system because of its unique structure where a lot of federal employees ride it, the federal buildings aren't taxable, etc. Provides an extra $150 million a year, and it's matched by local jurisdictions, it's $300. That stops in 2019. And so I think one of the really important things that we need to do is make sure WMATA rights the ship in these next 2 years so that we can try and work with Congress to retain that extra money. I know there's a lot of discussions about whether or not WMATA needs increased revenues or dedicated revenues. There's people saying they need to look at their union contracts and do other things of that nature. I think those are all fine and valid discussions. The first thing we need to do is get an interstate compact for this commission passed. The second thing we do is support the GM as he works in this reform, and then we can't lose an existing $300 million that's already in the WMATA budget. And so those are really some of the priorities that the administration has over the next 18 months working with WMATA here. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really hard. I suspect there may be folks in Maryland who want to add language in interstate compact. I suspect there may be folks in Richmond who want to add language there. I think the thing we need to do is we need to make sure we get this enacted this session. That's why we're going to put it out so early. We've already put out a draft. The Washington Post thanked us for our due diligence by writing an op-ed saying you voted awful FOIA provision. Turns out they were right, which is why I'm glad we put out a draft so early, because we went back and said, that is tough. That doesn't work. We're going to need to change this. And so that language is actually out there. So I encourage you all to take a look at it, see if you have issues or other things you'd like to talk to us about, because we're in the stage right now where it is amendable, It is completely in draft form, and we already got a really great suggestion from the Washington Post. I just wish they would have called us instead of putting it on the 18-point font on the back page. But hey, that's their job, and I have my job. So again, those are the folks for Lumana. I do have one other thing I want to talk about, and that is a grant that we have pending before the federal government that I think could be very important for Northern Virginia. President Obama last December signed the first long-term federal transportation bill we've had in a long time. It's called the FAST Act. They're great with acronyms up in D.C. I couldn't actually tell you what FAST stands for, but I'm guessing it's something about surface transportation. Part of that bill is it created a several $100 million a year program that's a discretionary grant program nationwide. So again, all 50 states are looking at this grant program. And Virginia has put in a package of projects that total $1.4 billion, and we're asking the feds for some help. We think the feds are going to be making a decision here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but if they give us support for our grant, what it will help us fund is significant improvements to the 95 corridor. So we'll do the 395 express lanes from the Beltway to the Potomac River. We'll also be adding 10 miles south on the 95 express lane. So if anyone's driven south in the evening of 95, you know how fun that is. So we'll send that south all the way to Fredericksburg. And then in Fredericksburg, we're going to build a new bridge over the Rappahannock River that will keep a lot of that local traffic from Route 17 and 3 off the through lanes and address that key bottleneck there. The project also is going to build new parking robots in the 95 corridor. And I think really importantly, both for VRE, Amtrak, and the Port of Virginia, it's going to make real progress on the 95 rail corridor. And so it will add 8 miles of third track south of Springfield, which will really help with VRE service. It will actually help us run a new train down to Fredericksburg. And then we'll also fund phase 1 of the Long Bridge. The Long Bridge is the worst rail bottleneck on the East Coast. And really, it's that if you ever drive across 14th Street Bridge and you look to your right and you see that rusted hulk of metal, that's the Long Bridge. It's the oldest bridge that we have crossing the Potomac, and believe it or not, it's structurally sound. The problem we have is there's 2 tracks, and there's not an ounce of extra capacity on that bridge right now. So we can't run more trains into DC until we start to do improvements to that bridge. And so one of the things we're doing is we're going to build a 4th track from Alexandria, basically to the banks of the Potomac, and that's kind of like the approach to the bridge. And then the grant would also fund the engineering to either add a new 2nd track bridge next to that, so there'll be 4 tracks overall. 2 will run to Union Station, and then 2 will go through the Virginia Avenue Tunnel, which we're funding. That will allow double-stack trains from the Port of Virginia to go to points north. So it can really unlock that section of railroad there. But we can't do it unless the feds give us funding.
You said $1.8 billion?
It's $1.4 billion.
It would do all that?
It would do all that. And it would also actually help on our VRE train out to Manassas as well, so it's not just in the 95 corridor. What most people don't know is all rail in Virginia, when you're heading north and east, it goes through Alexandria and Arlington. So the Lynchburg passenger rail service, that connects up with the 95 rail corridor. The VRE Manassas line, 95 rail corridor. Unless you're all the way by 81 on the Norfolk Southern Crescent corridor, and that single track, you go across the Long Bridge. We just say you go to the biggest rail bottleneck on the East Coast. So if any of you have any sway with Secretary Fox or the senators in Virginia or the congressmen, please, please, please reach out to them. We have a real opportunity here where CSX, for the first time in years, has agreed to put in money. They've agreed to these improvements. They've agreed to let us run more trains. Transurban has stepped up with several $100 million in private investment that they're willing to put forward. I don't know if either one of them are going to be in the same place in a year. So if we strike out this year, it's not that, oh, we just get to wait till next year and then, we can try again. We may not be able to do this again next year.
So is this for just surface, is this just for roads, or is this for any multimodal options?
It is just for surface.
It's just for surface, okay.
Yeah, the way they authorize the bills in Congress, there's one for ports, there's one for airports, and then there's one for surface transportation. So I think I talked for a while now, but hopefully I haven't bored from everyone. I told you a few things that you didn't know before you got here. I really appreciate the opportunity. And again, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And again, I'm here. You got me. So if we've done something that you didn't like, or you thought was weird, or you didn't understand why we did it, ask me. I really hope I really answer now that I've invited that. But again, I really appreciate you all giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. First of all, thank you. Stand there for a while. Anyone like to ask Nick any questions? I have one. Would you talk a little more about the other criteria beside in House Bill 2 that will no longer come in House Bill 2? Besides congestion mitigation, would you talk a little bit about the other criteria?
So congestion mitigation is 45% of all project scores in Northern Virginia. But if you're from Northern Virginia, you need to care about the other scoring areas. And the reason why is economic development is only 5% of your score here in Northern Virginia, but all projects are scored relative to each other. So if you get a great economic development score, even though you only get 5 points for it, you're pushing everyone else's scores down. So we had a really interesting thing with the high-rise bridge in Hampton Roads. They got a score of 0 for economic development. The secretary, bringing through the score, he goes, Nick, you guys, you screwed up here. How the heck does the high-rise bridge by the Port of Virginia have an economic development score of 0? So that's a really good question. I'll be right back. And we went and got the application, and they didn't fill out anything. And so we called them and said, hey guys, you don't have, there's no sites nearby, there's no distribution facilities, which we know there are. There's no distribution facilities, there's no private ports, what's going on? And they said, it's 5 points. Why would we fill that out? And there's 2 reasons why that's silly. As I said, one, if they got a really high score, economic development is 35% of the score in the Bristol district, that means you had an opportunity to push some of those Bristol projects down so you could compete better statewide than them, and that you missed. But the other thing is, the average project's benefit score was probably under 5. You don't need to be a rock star in every category to be funded. You need to be really, really good in one, or okay in 2 or 3. And if you do that, your project's going to get funded. So economic development and safety are the 2 that are weighted lowest here in Northern Virginia. They're each 5% of your scores. Safety really looks at the number of fatal and severe injuries, and the board's considering expanding that to all injury types of crashes there. Again, 66 outside of Beltway actually is one of the top 20 projects in the Commonwealth on that. We've got 3 or 4 points there. Again, that's more than a lot of projects. Just in that one category that project received there. Under economic development, what we're really looking for is what's the commercial and industrial development that could take place nearby. And the further that development is along in the approval process, the more points you get for it. So is there a site plan? You get more points. Are the utilities at the site? You get more points. Is there an approved site plan in place, which means you really have a private sector guys interested, you get even more points. The other things we look at in economic development are travel time reliability. And what we're talking about there not is there congestion, but is the congestion different every day or is it the same? Northern Virginia, you not only have congestion, you have unreliable congestion. So if it's 10 miles, you know in traffic it's going to take you 25 minutes, except the other Monday it took you 45 minutes, and the Monday before that it took you 10. And so that's where we're talking about reliability. And then the other one is really looking at goods movement, the number of trucks. Some of your roads do pretty good on that. Candidly, 66 doesn't do well, but 95, scores very high on that. And some of your other roads, particularly in this end of the district, can score better there.
Nick, can I follow up on that point? My question's really prompted by 2 stories that were in the news clips this morning. And both of them involve
Don't believe everything you read.
projects. Well, it's probably a true story. They both involve projects where the governor stepped in, economic development projects, where the governor stepped in and said, all right, you need road improvements for this, the state will take care of those. Is there some pool of money that's set aside for him to do that?
So can you tell me the 2?
Yeah, I can. And my guess is that neither of these is large enough to have already been in the smart scale process. Maybe they were, but I'd kind of be surprised. One is the FBI project in Springfield, and the other is an IKEA store in Norfolk.
So the FBI stuff is things that are actually already underway.
Those are
those are things that have been programmed and moving forward. That's all I can say about that. And then the IKEA one, that actually was scored under this smart scale process, and was recommended for funding was $9.3 million, including the I-64 North Hampton Boulevard interchange there. And, you know, it's, I think, a one-lane interchange today, and they're going to be making it basically a four-lane interchange with, I think, two left-hand turn lanes, one straight lane, and one right-hand turn lane. That was scored, evaluated, and it was one of the higher scoring projects in the Amherst district relative to cost.
I have one more question. I know that recently letters were sent by the legislative bodies, both at the federal level and at the House level, regarding funding and WMATA. Did those letters have any criteria attached to them? In other words, we can see ourselves giving you more money if this happens. Were there benchmarks to those letters that said what they're looking for in order to feel more comfortable about offering more funding to WMATA?
My recollection, and I think some of the signatories are here, so I don't know the words in their mouth, that I was really looking at this General Assembly session and saying right now is not the time for increased revenues, but I'm really, another mention, I think other Rocky may have also signed that.
Yeah, I can answer that. Basically, we want to be clear on this, that if WMATA comes out with a handout with the usual story that we are going to be bound to provide our fair share to them, we need to think that we can our fair share. And we would first like to talk about the model reforms. And that the regarding criteria is that if you do reforms A, B, and C, then we'll consider that. One thing that Chairman mentioned that we'd like to see a dedicated funding source. Everyone agrees, conceptually, that's a good idea. But given the issues that we've had with WMATA, I think probably we get funding for before we see some reforms made to the work. And the program on this, Karen Crowley, Karen, is before we talk about how much money we put in the black hole, let's first find out put a bottom in the black hole.
To the black hole analogy.
I prefer to refer to this as natural one. What perhaps Deputy Secretary, you could elaborate on a little bit is holding Metro's feet to the fire. What would be done differently going forward that hasn't been done in the first 40 years of Metro's operation?
Well, and I said that in specific reference to the governor's executive directive there. So again, I told you today we don't have an interstate compact, so we don't have any committees that can actually force WMATA stand if they ignore a safety directive, which they have done. And so what the executive directive it tells DRPT and secretary that they have to take all actions within their purview to ensure WMATA complies with any safety directives issued by the agencies providing state safety oversight functions. Right now, it's the Federal Transit Administration. They actually took that over from our existing entity because they said your existing entity is leaderless, toothless, and they had some others. It comes in threes, a lot of times. They said those things, so they take it over. So what the DRPT is currently in the process of doing, and both of you will see this come before you in the grant agreement to the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, is we are working language in there that says if WMATA ignores the safety directive from FTA between now and the Metro Safety Commission established by the Interstate Compact, DRPT is going to withhold money from the commission because we want you to withhold money from WMATA. Because we want WMATA to comply with those directives. See, there's going to be, it's not saying we're going to take all the money. We're not taking operating money. What we're talking about here is the capital money that can go to effectuate these safety improvements. And if it's a $1 million issue, I don't think you're going to see it's over $100 million. We'll probably look at withholding something commensurate, with that amount. Director Mitchell is currently working on those details, but that's what we mean. We're serious about this. We're not going to shake our finger anymore. We're going to take money away. The last thing I want to do is take money away from WMATA because I think they need those funds to actually improve the situation. I think the current GM is dead serious about doing that. And as long as he stays dead serious, we're not going to take any money away. But if they ever back away from this commitment over the next 12 months, there's going to be provisions, and there's an executive directive from the governor that will will tell us who will hold money.
Roughly what percentage of their operating budget would you have the latitude to withhold?
So it's not the operating, it's the capital budget that we're focusing, so we don't want the trains to stop there. It's about 100 million or so annually that this would apply to. So again, it's not, I think their capital budget range is around 900 million or so a year, and I may have that off by a few hundred million, which is embarrassing to admit. It's fluctuated a fair amount in the last few years. So it's not all the money in the world, but with the velocity at which the current GM is putting money out the door and getting things done, it would impact their plans. And so we're hoping that that stick will ensure that the board never asks him to back down from his current commitment, and that he stays firm on his current commitment. You know, he's only been in there for about a month and a half now. Again, made a lot of tough choices. We want to make sure he keeps making those tough choices over the next 12 months, and then once we have the interstate compact in place, that will take care of those issues. They will be able to force them out of stand on those safety directives, which is so important. But I also think, to what Delegate Mitchell was saying earlier, is the administration is not making a push for increased revenues for Vermont this year. What we're making a push for is getting the interstate compact enacted, working with the GM to improve accountability within Vermont. And then I do think the thing that we're ready to do with that is, what is it going to take to right what's happening in Vermont? And that's one, accountability with the GM and the employees and the structure. And part of it, from our perspective, is also funding. I do think we need to see improvements there before we get to that funding issue. I just think that's very plainly where we are. And then I also think we have to worry about that 300 million. If in 3 years that 300 million goes away, 150 of that is money we are getting from all 50 states in America. I do not want to lose that money. And Tom Davis got that money for the Commonwealth, working with Moran and Wolf. We had 3 very senior members of the House, particularly the Appropriations Committee and some of the other committees. We don't have that anymore. And so it's my real hope that we'll be able to work through this, but it's going to be a heck of a lot harder this time.
One quick question, if I may follow up. Who does that hard work, man? Who makes those proposals?
The congressional proposals?
No, the proposals to reform Vermont.
I think we need to see them come from the GM.
Okay.
He is the one working day to day with these people, and we need him to, he's the one who talks to people every day. He's the one who walks through the tunnels when the trains aren't there. He sees the bus garages, he sees the maintenance garages. We're looking to him for that. We may need help at times. They may need consultant support, they may need other things. I think we're going to be more than willing to provide that to him. But I think it needs to come from the GM. He's the executive there, and he's going to know that system better than any of us. But also, candidly, if the GM's not on board, I don't know how we'll pull this off.
So, as we're talking about all the problems that the metro is having, we're in the middle of the Silver Line expansion. So the question that I hear a lot is how the two, what's the correlation between the two? Is the Silver Line adding risk, or is it completely separate?
The Silver Line is completely safe. It is being constructed by an entirely different entity, and it is being funded by revenue streams that are not available to Vermont. So the Washington Post wrote this great editorial saying Virginia was so foolish to try and expand transit in Virginia. They should have given all the money that's coming from Virginians to improve, the tunnels in D.C. Well, I respectfully disagree. This is being funded by real estate in Tyson's Corner, drivers of the Dulles Toll Road, real estate in Loudon, and the state general fund. That money is not available just for the general repair of Vermont. That money is available to expand transit in Virginia and to provide better travel choices along very congested corridors. So the Silver Line is well underway. They've had a few change orders and other things that have slowed it down by a few months, which is unfortunate. We're hoping they can keep to the current completion date, but that is not at all imperiled by the other issues at Vermont, except for when other issues that will want to result in single track and other things like that. So hopefully we'll be past that in 2019, but I think the GM is telling us this isn't a one-year thing. We're just doing 3 years in 1 year. I don't know what we're going to do next year. But he's saying it's not 1 year and we're clear. This is 1 year of really hard stuff, and hopefully it won't be as bad, but it's still probably going to be painful.
Maybe the greatest concern I think we may see with the Silver Line
is not that it's not going to have good ridership, it's going to have great ridership, is that there's one tunnel that has silver line, the orange line, and the blue line. And Nick, how many cars a minute go to the tunnel?
No, it's not a minute. It's less than a minute. So it's 26 cars an hour.
26 cars an hour. So once the silver line is operational, 772, everything happens. We may have a situation whereby trains are being held underground at Roswell, waiting for their chance to go to the Potomac River. And you're caught under Roswell for 15 minutes, waiting for your train to have its opportunity to go over the Potomac, heading over to the Foggy Bottom station. You're not going to be happy. And we're not going to be able to fix that without some major capital infusions. That's really the biggest issue I have with the silver line.
Well, and I think we'll be able to avoid that situation, at least for the foreseeable future. So the way they've dealt with this is they've used about 22 of the spots before the silver line opened, and that was a little more orange, a little less blue. What's effectively happened since then is they've cut blue line service. They've tried to add more 8-car trains to the blue line, and that's allowed more silver and orange. And very candidly, in Virginia, our heaviest loads are from Boston to Roslyn and into Pack. So what we have right now is we can't increase service on any lines. So hopefully no one's going to be waiting for 15 minutes except when there's screw-ups, and there happen screw-ups. So that has happened, but what we're not going to be able to do is right now we got 6 blue line cars an hour. I think we have 10 silver line, we have 10 orange line. If the orange line, silver line fills back up, we can't just all of a sudden go to 11 silver or 11 orange. That's it. We're at the full capacity of that tunnel, and there's not going to be a darn thing we can do. Now, one of the things they have been talking about, and I think that's a little further into the future now, but is we can increase the capacity of the metro system by a third by moving to all 8-car trains during rush hour, and they've actually agreed to purchase a lot of rail cars. And those are the rail cars, part were from the Silver Line, and part were piggybacking on the Silver Line contract. And so over the next 4 years, you're going to see around 200 to 300 new rail cars come into the system. All of those are going to run in 8-car packs, and there's some technical reasons as to why. So that will be kind of the last thing we can do to increase capacity. But in 15 years, once we have all 8-car trains, we've had it for 10 years with the orange line, the silver line, the blue line, and we're back at cram cars again, until we address the Roslyn Tunnel, that's it.
Wasn't there a letter that came from the feds that challenged that 8-car train solution, maybe until the maintenance issues are addressed? What do they say about that?
The feds basically told Obama they want to see safety first. Respectfully to the Federal Transit Administration, these cars can only run in 4s. So there's no 6-car trains days. Yeah, and we can't do 4s in Virginia because you won't be able to put the passengers in just 4. So I think what they were saying is don't upgrade power everywhere across the system, which is something Obama was looking at, and don't buy 8-car trains for all day. What we have right now is more 8-car trains for rush hour, so we're still not going to have 8-car trains in off-peak. I think that's what they were kind of doing.
Thank you so much, Nick. Actually, right now we're going to just have our legislators, if they want to say any words, some brief comments, and we will go in order of seniority. So Delegate Minchie, Delegate Watt, Delegate Boystrop, if you'd like to have the floor for.
Give them on the motion. To add really, I'm Randy Minshew. I thought that being late. I was walking around 1 Harrison Street Southwest looking for this meeting. Honorable representative of Loudoun County, really, Union County is to the west of Blue Ridge. And the reason to have 2 ears and 1 mouth is that you should listen twice as much as you say. So I'd like to hear what our local government members have to say, what they'd like us to do when we go down to Richmond for a short session starting next January. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, sir.
Yield to the next lead senior.
Delegate Watt.
Chair, as much as I enjoyed bouncing a few more questions off the Deputy Secretary, I'll just pause any further questions or comments since we're probably pushing our time limit, and let the local governments raise their concerns and do the best to address any questions of those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Delegate Boystrop.
I'm Delegate Jennifer Boysko. I represent the 86th District. I'm a freshman member. I serve on the County, Cities, and Towns Committee, so I am all ears for you all. I have a long background working in county government as well, but again, I've enjoyed working. The three of us actually all sponsored a bill together to benefit their fire department, the volunteer firefighters, and look forward to working bipartisanly with everyone. So thank you.
And I think, Jennifer, you may be the only member of our delegation on county, cities, and towns. So she's the person on the day.
And her license number is 100, correct?
Yes. I don't buy the pizza for everyone.
And she's not all of that popular.
Speaking of local government, what we want. So would anyone like to ask the legislators questions of the locality or any direction?
I'm happy to offer a few things. I'm Dan Stork, I'm the representative Mount Vernon District from Fairfax County. I was newly elected prior to that. I was on the school board for 12 years in Fairfax County, representing Mount Vernon District as well. I think the key issues, I think we all universally know, education funding, being the richest state in the country, and 41st, funding public education is time to change. It's not acceptable. It makes it a burden on local taxpayers, funding we all are impacted by. Obviously, local governments get to choose how much they spend or not spend, but it's still an impact, particularly in Fairfax County, where we spend about 75% of the funding for schools come from Fairfax County. And I know there's some higher. Our cost of schools are effectively are below the average of this area significantly. So we're not spendthrifts, but we still have a difficulty competing because our cost to compete is higher. We have higher costs in this area that we need to make sure that the legislators understand and frankly address. I mean, there's no way everybody here recognizes that the cost of living in Northern Virginia is substantially higher than the rest of the state. And it's in all of our interests to make sure that there's some kind of formula that recognizes that. We are shortchanging our taxpayers here locally if we don't recognize that. And I know we've gone in and out of having cost to compete dollars, but I'm here to kind of register and urge you all to take that to heart and try to do what you can to make sure that we're treated more equitably in the Northern Virginia area. Again, we're trying to at least equate apples to apples. If it costs us, which it does, for a new teacher, it costs us at least $45,000 a year. That's just for the salary. Obviously, benefits on top of that. And in far southern areas of Virginia, they have a new teacher salary of $30,000 or $35,000. That's an immediate difference, but we all know that the costs, transportation, everything else is different. So maybe one of the first things on my list. Something else that would be on my list, I realize it probably isn't particularly appealing to most, but frankly, to me it's a fairness issue, which is we all know the local composite index disadvantages wealthier populations, or maybe wealthier populations do a great job of supporting less wealthy populations either way. And you can look at it both ways, half full, half empty. The challenge for, again, the Northern District, like ourselves, is we have a lot of wealth here. There's no denying that. Wealth, not only income wealth, but property wealth. But we know the LCI doesn't factor in income wealth. And to me, it's just a gross unfairness that not only does it not factor that in, but the state doesn't, if you will, return or rebate or lop off a portion of what we raise through the income tax in Fairfax County or Loudoun County or anywhere else, and provide that as a formula back to the local taxpayers. It would make a huge difference in property tax rates, and frankly, it's again a fairness issue. I don't think it's a I don't know if this is even the word disequity, but with the rest of the state, but I think it would be a way of recognizing what I know our taxpayers feel and what I think most of you are sensitive to, which is trying to make sure that folks that pay money are getting some way of seeing that money spent on things that they care about, that the state, frankly, doesn't fund adequately, at least for the needs of the area, whether it's cost of compete or just overall the need or the values that folks up here place on education at a higher level. So those are probably two key things.
first of all,
Transportation would be all third, of course. I mean, maybe the three aren't prioritized, but they're all three policies.
good education. One thing that is a great unifying force of Democrats and Republicans in the Republican there. And so the proposition really came out of the way to take these developmental promises and make them enforceable by law. And Fairfax County can't get that. Then it grew, saying, well, let's allow cash crops. And originally, it was Fairfax County only. Then it became Fairfax County and county adjacent to Fairfax County, and because there was a very interested senator from the Eastern Shore, he included Accomack and Washington County, because he said, I don't want Fairfax to be a part of my county bill. So we've got grown into this system, and it's fascinating. A lot of the property bill criminal law and each, many counties and towns are doing different. I even heard that some counties are going to say, we're going to take our conditional zoning ordinance out of the zoning. We're not going to accept property. Albemarle County might be one that's thinking about that. And it just has some interesting thought. You would ask yourself, is it a good idea or a bad idea to incentivize the legislative act with cash? You probably say no. But that's what the Constitution is doing. It's incentivizing, you pay for your impacts with cash, but you still are incentivizing the legislative act with cash. Is there a better way to do it? And I got a call from a colleague of mine who was a lawyer in Tampa. He said, this is proper. How do you do that? He said, well, you can't vote when you do a project. You get your zoning, you can conform it to the conference plan. Then you sit down with everybody and do a development. Or you get your site plan or your subdivision plan, and this is a template. You address all your impacts, and it's adopted by resolution of the body. And often I ask myself, would that be a better way to do it than conditional zoning? It's a different way to do it. I think New Kent County rather make the only county that does that.
I have some system that's a bit like that. Actually, Arlington's system is closer to that.
You may find that this town of Parkville is forced to think about, is there a better way to do what we're doing? And things that we're doing.
Arlington basically controls most of that through the site.
I have to say, I'm certainly willing to look at different ways, and I'm certainly willing to discuss, and I think you're probably right, that there are probably some better ways to do it in some ways that think outside the box. I don't know that as we're doing it, think outside the box, the people who write the legislation, the people that most benefit from it.
That the home builders agree replacing cash property with incomes. And where every unit by right of zoning, a 4-bedroom unit created through the zoning process of the same school impact as a 4-bedroom house by right. The one pays cash property is not. We have an impact fee regime, everyone pays their tax accordingly. And right here will call that legislation didn't go forward, not because of that theory, because I think the home builders wanted a cap, right? And I agree with that.
The cap was so low that it wouldn't produce nearly.
But we have some counties that doesn't do this.
The home builders in my area prefer the system that's in Fairfax Town over the impact fee. In fact, they were adamant when I was out campaigning, I was something they wanted me to square off. I'm not sure I didn't support it.
It depends really on whether you've already got approval for 2,000 units that you don't want to have to pay any more for, or whether you're trying to get approval for 2,000 units and you're willing to pay something for that. It's pretty simple.
Let me break in here just a minute. I'm very conscious of the time and asking you all to come out until 9 o'clock tonight. We have just a couple more minutes left, but I do want to say that your VACO team, we are watching several issues in Richmond that I think you probably need to be aware of, that we may have heard some about tonight, we may not have heard. I know Joe watching Airbnb, wireless communications, which is going to be another big deal going forward in this session of the General Assembly. Also participating in an annexation study that's gathering some speed right now, I think. And Larry focusing on some stormwater fees. Katie's going to be focusing on some children's services funding issues and education that we've already heard about tonight. And we've got a lot of interest all over the state in meals tax and cigarette tax. trying to implement, a lot of localities want to levy a cigarette tax, meals tax without referendum. So our steering committee is going to be looking at those and delving into those issues this coming year. And I really appreciate the thoughts that you've given us, Baco staff, a lot of information. I think we've had all of us taking notes. Sorry, I haven't been taking a lot of notes, but I think everybody else has. And so we got a lot of good stuff to go back to our steering. Great presentation, Mr. Secretary. Great presentation over there. And Connie reading his
Some of these were.
But I want to turn it back
Make
over
sure
to
they charge you the local TOT. That money goes back to transportation.
turn it back over to our Madam Chair here for final words.
Well, one thing you can do with me, Randy, when you guys go down, by law, it's actually called chairman. You change that. Called chairperson. Chairperson change that. By law, it's chairman, so, and it really is. Feel free to have that one. Feel free. So, thank you all for coming to Loudon. We appreciate all your thoughts. Thank you for all the staff for sticking with us tonight. Thank you, Janine. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us tonight. This was very good for me. I hope it's up for other people. And to the Baco staff, I appreciate you all coming all the way up here. And we will see you in a couple of months when we have our next meeting in Baco. So we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's only part of the
Yes.
dollar, we never seen gains dollar. And that gives rise to the problems we have. Something that you're going to
Are you approaching on a tax equity basis?
Well, you know, I think there was a steady resolution that went through, I think it was filed by Weaver of Rockford County, that said, okay, let's look at this formula and just look at it with 21st century eyes and say, is it something that we need to change the variables on? I think that was one of the few resolutions there is that actually good, the Rules Committee. And whether or not it will give rise to a change in the formula, it's a zero-sum game, it's always a zero-sum game. Whether or not that formula is back with the recommendation, at least we can science on it. I mean, if you look at some of the formulaic elements of the local cost index, you get things that percentage of your county owned by the federal government. That's really why you don't tax the federal government, so that helps your local cost index get lower, which is good, making more money. Maybe we can look at these variables and see how we can make them work.
At least allow the dollars, at least some percentage, 5, 10% or some number of the income tax dollars that are raised in that particular county to be kept in that particular county as an automatic, not as a bequeath from the state, but that is something that's automatically kept, which would then provide at least a more progressive form of taxation of the remaining defined county services. That would be the other topics. Even if you can't change LCI, I've heard that at least for 13 years, and recognize that would be a major challenge to change until at least there's a census at some future date that truly shifts the balance in Virginia from a more rural focus to more.
You have to think about in the rural schools, they have no capacity in their counties to generate revenue, something, and you have to remember, it absolutely can't be.
I don't think anybody, I mean, particularly somebody with a social conscious would never argue that purely, and I'm not. But it's also, well, it's not involved with medicine, it's evidence-based. There's an evidence-based process here that we should at least recognize, and it isn't a 20th century formulation, it should be a 21st century formulation, particularly one that recognizes the most valuable source of revenue for the state is the income tax, and to not have that at least be a source of revenue for counties to use, and it shouldn't be part of any taxation, any redistribution formulation. I mean, you have one way or the other, so I'm saying be consistent. In essence, I would take it either way, but just be consistent because it will allow us to better, more fairly represent.
One of the things we've become aware of working with that LCI from year to year is that it also tends to reward the systems that are, school systems that are shrinking at the expense of other.
Yeah.
That's, it seems to me, if there's a way to fix it, one way to try to do that is to look at the gross component and see if there's some way that
Well said.
counts for something.
So that's right. Maybe redoing the variables back in the right.
On another note, I'm not going to speak for everyone all the county chairs and people who are the Vaco Board of Directors meetings, but I can say that I can remember sitting in 2 meetings in Vaco and the members saying, does the General Assembly talk to local officials at all before they decide what bill to put forward? And people feeling very frustrated. Now this is the first time I've been the chair and watched the General Assembly at work, and it was quite telling. It did feel like the General Assembly's goal this year was how much can we mess with local governments a little bit. And
I know we share that.
And I actually, I feel very lucky. I know every one of the legislators from our delegation, and if I can pick up the phone and call just about all of you and have a great relationship. I don't know if this means we have more discussion before the assembly starts, because once you all start, you don't speak for the entire time, and you just go very hard the entire time. I don't know if it's one person in the delegation deciding that you're going to be the person who has an outreach to that body, whether the county board of Loudoun or the county board of Fairfax. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I do know that you know, there were questions about have they ever worked in local government. Did I understand what was going through up here? At one point, it just felt like everything coming out of the General Assembly was, let's bear down the local government's.
There's something in a proper bill that no one in this room had to do with. What other bills?
Well, I'll give you an example. There was a bill that came out of General Assembly about whether or not a person who had a farm and have more than 2 horses, whether or not we could, the General Assembly should regulate how their milk is produced. I mean, things like that. It was like, you've got to be kidding. Because that actually came to our board. We're like, really, General Assembly? Really? yeah, we do. So it was all kind of things. It was like every week there was something new. And you know, we made 2 visits down. I made 3 actually. And I will say, you know, we met with Randy, we met with you, Jim, we met with you. I think we met with you, Mr. Brock. You know, we have great relationships. But it didn't feel like there was enough talking to one another before the assembly. Now, it also happens that you met with the board that was leaving office, and then you had 5 new members come in after, so we actually never even had the conversations before we took the days between that time. So that was something that won't happen every year, something that we have to be cognizant of in election years to come. But just, you know, greater communication probably in the future. And again, there's not one of you that I don't feel comfortable.
Well, the county is very well represented, Richmond, Jeff Ford, Roger Wiley, Charles Down. For example, I filed a bill at the request of the town of Leesburg to allow them to study whether or not.
I remember that, that did not go well for you.
and within 40 hours after I filed that, Jeff Ford, Roger Wiley were right on my doorstep saying, no, the county is concerned about this. And I thought,
I remember that.
and, so the communication happened. And on that bill, which Roger and I joked about, Leesburg said, you know, we don't know it's a good deal for our taxpayers to become a city, but we kind of want to study it, and we'd rather have the option on the table when you study it rather than studying something that you can't do by law.
Right, I remember that.
And, but I think that issue got pretty
That did not go well for you.
It's very fruitful discussion, now it's
Yes, but just to have, you know, more discussions, and we can figure out how that can look. But yeah.
I have to say that we find everybody in the Loudoun delegation to be pretty receptive when we go to this county has a concern about something. But, you know, they're only a small part of the total that we have to deal with. And some of the things that we're concerned about are coming from
No, I understand.
other places.
And I would say, on the other side of the coin, when we went down, especially for the Crawford bill, the Loudoun's delegation carried the water on the Crawford bill. I mean, Jennifer Wexton, her speech on the floor was just brilliant. And Loudoun's delegation, you all did a fantastic job on things that not go as we had planned or hoped. But that, you know, Loudoun's delegation, as you say, is not the entire assembly. So that did go very well.
I do think there's a trend we're seeing where trade groups or industry groups are finding it easier to deal with a statewide set of standards than to deal with individual localities. And so we've seen with farm wineries and breweries, we've seen it now, we're seeing it now with the Airbnb legislation where it's kind of easier to come to Richmond and get a bill passed that takes care of that industry or that trade group's concerns than it is to go to 137 or whatever it is, counties and cities to do that. And that's understandable to some extent, but it's also true that for a lot of those kinds of issues, one size doesn't fit all, uniquely with all the Airbnb sites, probably investments where one size doesn't fit all.
But Airbnb was an interesting kind of case study, because that was filed, and everyone said, this is a sharing technology, it's state of the art, it's as cool and fresh and modern as Uber was last year. And you started peeling back everybody as well. What's this stuff about existing local zoning control? And what's this about the way that it's taxed? And what's this about overriding residential covenants? And what's this about how it interferes with legitimate hotel privacy? And legally does more problems for us. So I'm really glad that you look at here over that. I was really concerned that that bill would just go so fast and we would learn the latent defects until after we cleared local houses. Because it did gradually definitely. So that bill came up by sneezing.
Well, there's a we're working on that, and with the VACO staff, we're trying to help them monitor that and see what's going to happen. But I think we can assure you that it will be back before you next year, and we probably will not like everything that's in it. So just be prepared for another fight, I guess.
We have to see if the mulch bill.
You know, you learn things doing this work. It never occurred to me that mulch fires are a problem. Yes, they really are.
Does anyone have any more questions?
Yes.
I'll just kind of throw out a comment in response to education funding. I've put a lot of sweat and effort along with my colleagues and an outside the box sort of way to resolve some of the shortfalls for education funding. Obviously, ultimately it's business at the end of the day. Business of providing quality education is the product, and doing it with by working efficiently with taxpayers' dollars. So I've found that education choice, which brings a whole variety of alternatives, to complement the public school model, has the potential of spreading those tax dollars more efficiently and providing, in some cases, superior outcomes. When all the school boards, I shouldn't say all, but most of the superintendents associations, school boards who are represented by the Teachers Association, oppose something that's slightly outside the box, you have to potentially make it a lot more difficult. I mean, when I say you, but I'm sorry, I'm following my comments through you. But it's a shame to take options off the table that have spectacular potential. You may be aware of how well things have worked for New Orleans, where basically the school district is washed off the face of the map. And out of necessity, they came forward with a bold experiment which involved lots of charter schools and a variety of other options that are generally on the menu of school choice. And they have seen a turnaround in the educational outcomes that's nothing short of spectacular. Now, does that provide conclusive, verifiable scientific evidence that all those forms are infallible? Absolutely not. But it's a great indication that they discovered some things, proven that they were, and but yet they're under fierce attack by those representing the public school establishment. So there are alternatives out there. Sometimes we just have to get outside that box a little bit so that the people in the public schools have more money per student to work with. Maybe it's slightly reduced enrollment, but some flexibility there would be very helpful in the problem-solving process. Because again, at the end of the day, it's not about buildings, it's not about budgets, it's about quality of education and making sure the taxpayers' dollars are spent responsibly. So, any help you can give us there?
Well, as an entrepreneur of more than 25 years, started a number of businesses, sold some, closed some, and still operate as an entrepreneur in healthcare. I'm very familiar with the private sector and all enough, you're not flexible enough, you only will fail, because there's no single idea that usually is the right idea when you first start. It takes time and effort, and it's will contour, if you will, as you go along. And I think schools are very much the same way, and need to have the same flexibility, and I've supported charter schools for that reason. The challenge we've had, Traverse County is a great example, there's been only one serious charter proposal, one that I supported. I knew the gentleman very well, met with him many times, but ultimately he was not able to put together a package, if you will, that was effectively would have met the test. It was something that was likely to succeed. So I think it was handled the right way by our board. That's not to say that everybody would have been as supportive I was, I recognize that, but I think it would ultimately have succeeded if the financing had been strong enough. I think that was the key issue in this case. But the flexibility that we have to have as a board, but the fact that it, in my mind, still, the local Board of Education, county Board of Education is still, in the Constitution of Virginia and in general, still responsible for education community, and having charter schools go through that, I think, is a valid, viable, appropriate system. If there's something that that school board is not doing, or some bias that they have that's precluding that from being appropriately considered, I would be the first, along with you and others, I'm sure, to object to that and say, you need to give this organization that opportunity to succeed as long as the standards are similar. The district I represent has a lot of needy kids, and I can think of a couple models where a charter school could be more focused and just provide a better education because of that focus. But so far that's not emerged. Something that I, again, not on the school board, I could even still support in other ways, but I think there's value and there's ability to that. But I don't support spending taxpayer dollars sending it to private organizations, other than part of the charter network. So in that sense, maybe we disagree. I think the charter schools they had in New Orleans, I know they had some excellent results, some good, some bad. UC's had similar kinds of challenges, and some good, some bad. Issues providing that landscape that's fair and equitable across the board, and letting, if you will, others come in and compete for providing education to kids. So we don't understand what part of the issue is how do we do it in a way that still gives oversight. I think is critical.